Imagine waking up in a world that no longer looks like the one you knew, where everything is a constant fight for survival. This is the reality that many are predicting for 2025, the year that promises to be the most difficult ever. This is not about conspiracy theory or exaggeration, but about looking at the signs that are already before us. Global conflicts, financial crises, increasingly intense natural disasters, and a humanity that appears to be on the verge of collapse. As scary as all this may seem, there is a way to face what is to come. You can choose to ignore the signs and hope for the best, or you can prepare, understand what is at stake, and be ready to face each challenge with courage and discernment. This is precisely where you have the opportunity to change your own story. The year 2025 may be bleak, but it may also be the time when those who are ready will overcome obstacles and find ways to thrive amid the chaos. So, if you are one of those people who are not content to wait for the worst, but prefer to be prepared and be part of a minority that is resilient, stay with us. Let's explore everything that lies ahead together and understand how we can transform fear into preparation and challenges into opportunities. After all, it is in the eye of the storm that true heroes reveal themselves. Ready to face 2025 head-on? The global vision of the challenges we face cannot be separated from ancient biblical prophecies. Increasingly, the evidence around us seems to align with recorded omens, as if we are following a script that has already been written. Natural catastrophes, pandemics, and continent-spanning conflicts sound like a distant echo of prophetic words. And those who pay attention see these correlations revealing themselves day after day. It is not a mere coincidence, but rather a cycle that returns, reminding us of the old warnings. As we observe environmental changes, pandemics, and wars, it is difficult not to feel that we are living in exceptional times. The impact of COVID-19, rising global temperatures, and international conflicts point to something much bigger than mere isolated events. For those who take a closer look, these events are signs that sound alarms. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to be prepared to face these challenges head-on, with courage and discernment? These challenges call us to reflect, to connect with what is to come, and to find strength in prophecies, not as distant predictions, but as practical warnings that shape our decisions today. If we stop to think, what can we learn from past warnings that help us deal with present crises? And, most importantly, what can you do to prepare for the challenges that continue to arise, one after the other, as if following a previously established schedule? Before we move on, I would like to ask you to subscribe to the channel and share this video. Every day I bring content about prophecies and biblical studies. The pandemics we have faced recently have left deep marks, both on society and on our sense of security. The devastating impact of COVID-19 has shown that we are more vulnerable than we imagined. And, in addition to it, other threats have emerged, such as the spread of new respiratory viruses and avian flu. These events are not just passing crises, but also painful reminders of our fragility. Just as biblical prophecies warned of plagues, modern times force us to think about our preparation, physical, mental, and spiritual. It is interesting to note how the effects of a pandemic are not restricted to the health field. The economy, social relations, and even our way of seeing the world are profoundly affected. Who would have imagined that, in the 21st century, we would live days of isolation, constant fear, and uncertainty? And it's not just that. The prophecies warned about the increase in diseases that would devastate men and animals. Nature seems to be trying to communicate something to us, but are we listening? Preparing means learning from these lessons and looking for ways to be ready for the unexpected. And speaking of preparation, how about doing something practical? Investing in knowledge about how to protect your health, adopting habits that strengthen the immune system, and even learning basic first aid techniques can be forms of resilience. It's not just about surviving, but thriving amid chaos. Pandemics have shown that preparedness is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And, as we reflect on our health, new signs emerge, coming from the very earth we walk on. The escalation of natural disasters is the next warning we must take seriously. Natural disasters are becoming not only more frequent but also more devastating. Each year we witness events like the out-of-control fires in Chile and Colombia, and it's impossible not to wonder if the earth is trying to tell us something. These calamities spread like wildfire, taking with them lives, destruction, and leaving scars on the planet. All of this is often associated with the advance of climate change and the intensification of the El Niño phenomenon, which seems out of control, as if nature had lost its patience. It is not difficult to draw a parallel with the ancient prophecies that speak of the imbalance in the world. Imagine living in a community that suddenly finds itself in the path of one of these disasters. Homes, memories, and family livelihoods disappear in minutes, leaving behind a trail of uncertainty. Nature is, in fact, a reflection of our own actions, and the consequences are increasingly visible. Biblical prophecies often mention signs in heaven and earth, and it is difficult to ignore that we are seeing these signs more frequently and intensely. Just like a volcano that accumulates pressure until it explodes, nature seems to warn us that the time to act is running out. Whether it's forests that turn to ashes or storms that leave cities submerged, the message is given. We need to be prepared to face whatever comes. And that doesn't just mean saving our possessions, but also learning to value what really matters, like our connections, our faith, and our sense of community. Speaking of which, there is an even more unpredictable force that defies our understanding: the increase in volcanic activity, as we will see below. In recent times, a worrying increase in volcanic activity has attracted the attention of scientists and communities around the world. Regions like Campi Flegrei in Italy and the vast landscapes of Iceland face growing tension, where the ground seems to breathe nervously, ready to explode. Imagine living in fear of an imminent eruption, the constant uncertainty, the apprehensive gaze toward the horizon, hoping the worst doesn't happen. These volcanoes are not just geological formations. They are silent reminders that we are in a tenuous balance, as biblical prophecies warn. When we think of a volcano, we think of a force that humanity cannot contain. At Campi Flegrei, one of the most dangerous volcanic areas in the world, any sign of activity creates a race against time. How to evacuate, how to save lives. We are talking about potential eruptions that could cover entire cities in ash and transform landscapes into devastated scenes. The scriptures often mention the shaking of the earth and the fear it causes. Seeing the signs we have today, the feeling is that these ancestral warnings are not mere allegories but a real warning. And while the earth shakes, tensions between peoples also intensify, leading us to another type of explosion: the confrontation between nations. Wars and conflicts, inflamed by fear and the struggle for power, are another omen that we cannot ignore. And that is exactly what we will see in the next topic: geopolitical instability and its imminent risks. The world has witnessed a dramatic rise in geopolitical tensions that challenge any notion of peace we hoped to achieve this century. Conflicts like Russia and Ukraine, or the constant skirmishes between Israel and Gaza, remind us daily that peace is fragile and that a trigger can be enough to light a global flame. Ancient prophecies warn of nations rising against nations, and it is difficult not to see the current times reflected in these words. We live in times where a spark across borders can cause a fire that consumes the entire world. Even more worrying is the nuclear threat that hangs like a shadow over these disputes. In moments like these, all it takes is one miscalculation, one thoughtless decision, for the consequences to be catastrophic and irreversible. No one wants to see the consequences of nuclear war, but we all know that this is a real and present risk. Fear of possible mass collapse is not just a theme of dystopian books. It is a possibility that resonates in our days, echoing the predictions of turbulent times that await us. The answer to these threats may lie in unity, diplomacy, and the wisdom of seeking peaceful solutions. We need, more than ever, to develop a clear vision about what we can do as individuals to promote peace and prevent these tensions from escalating. War may seem distant, but its impacts are felt everywhere, from the loss of life to the increase in the basic costs of our survival. And speaking of costs, we cannot forget these conflicts. They also lead us directly to the next problem, an economic crisis that promises to shake the structures of several nations. The economic crisis unfolding before our eyes is not just a reflection of territorial disputes and pandemics. It is also a consequence of natural disasters and the shocks caused by endless wars. The COVID-19 pandemic has left a trail of financial destruction that many countries are still trying to overcome. And, with new conflicts emerging every day, recovery seems a distant dream. Inflation reaches alarming levels, markets rock like a boat in a storm, and for many people, financial survival is a daily challenge. It's not just numbers, these are lives that are at stake. Imagine a family that was already struggling to keep up with its bills, now finding itself faced with increasingly higher prices and fewer opportunities. This is not a distant fiction, but the reality of millions of people around the world. Prophecies have always warned us about times of scarcity, the destruction of economic bases, and the difficulties in accessing even the basics to live. And now, looking at the present, it is as if we are living every word of those warnings. Hunger, poverty, and inequality are on the rise, and many are wondering how they will get through the next few months, let alone the next few years. But not everything is despair. There is hope, and there are ways to prepare. It's time to look at our expenses, be prudent with our finances, and learn how to build a reserve for times of crisis. Small steps, such as reducing unnecessary expenses and seeking alternative forms of income, can make a big difference. Crises teach us valuable lessons about resilience and creativity. And while many are preparing for a more difficult economic scenario, there are also those who, with a firm and hopeful outlook, are willing to do whatever it takes to face tomorrow. And it is exactly this inner strength and the need to prepare that we will talk about next. In the midst of so many gloomy predictions and overwhelming challenges, there is a force that drives us to continue: hope. We are not just here to weather storms, but also to find ways to weather them with resilience. The future may seem uncertain, but it is exactly in this scenario that we can rise, more prepared and stronger. Biblical prophecies, although often associated with tragedy, also speak of a time of renewal and transformation, in which those who are ready will flourish. It's not about waiting for everything to resolve itself, but about acting, about preparing. Being prepared for challenges means being aware of everything that may come and making intelligent choices. It can range from learning new skills, investing in what is essential, and developing a readiness mindset. Spiritual and emotional preparation is also crucial. Having faith, staying informed, and seeking strength from the people around you are fundamental parts of this process. Just as Noah built an ark in times of calm, we are called to prepare for what is to come, not with fear, but with quiet determination. We can start with simple steps, like building a small emergency fund or growing our own food. This message of hope and action is a reminder that even in the worst adversity, there is always a path to follow. Preparation gives us the chance to face uncertainties with clarity and courage. Each of us has a role to play in this journey, whether to protect ourselves, to help others, or to ensure a better future. So, when looking at the challenges that the world presents to us, how about seeing each one as an opportunity to strengthen yourself and be ready for the next step. Because after all, the future belongs to those who prepare today. And now, with each of the topics developed, we can close this roadmap with a message that unites everything we discussed and makes us reflect on the path forward. We have reached the end of this journey, but the real journey is just beginning. Everything we discuss here should not be seen just as catastrophic predictions, but as a call to action. Crises, challenges, and signs are not here to paralyze us with fear, but to remind us of our ability to adapt, survive, and even thrive. Think about it. What choices are you making now to be ready for what's to come? Are you taking advantage of the opportunities you have today to learn new skills, strengthen your relationships, and take care of your health? The secret is not to wait for things to just happen, but to act with purpose and determination. Face each challenge that the future brings as an opportunity for personal and collective